There is a sacred tradition in the military, leave no one behind on the battlefield. But many veterans are beginning to believe their country has left them behind at home, once they're out of uniform and in need of help. That help is supposed to come from the Department of Veterans Affairs and the financial compensation it gives to veterans disabled by their military service. It was Abraham Lincoln who said the purpose of the VA was to, quote, care for him who shall have borne the battle. But the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have pushed the VA further behind in that mission. And today there are 1 million veterans waiting for the VA to handle their disability claims. That's led some to latch onto another motto making the rounds for how the VA operates: delay, deny, and hope that I die.
When I hear that, I will tell you that it really troubles me. As somebody who has devoted 35 years of my life to this organization and to serving veterans, it's extremely troubling that there are veterans who feel that way.
Michael Walkoff is the VA's Deputy Undersecretary for Benefits. Last year, $30 billion, 1/3 of the VA's total budget, was paid in disability compensation to nearly 3 million veterans. To receive a disability benefit, a veteran has to be honorably discharged, yes?
Yes.
They have to have a current disability and provide evidence that it was service-related.
That it's connected to their service, right.
Why then is the claim form 23 pages long?
A 23-page application form, I think, probably goes beyond just what is required. And one of the things that we're looking at is to try to simplify the process.
That process has been strained by a flood of disability claims. Everything from combat wounds to injuries off the battlefield, illnesses and psychological disorders. Since 2003, 400,000 claims have come from veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Hundreds of thousands more from aging veterans of earlier conflicts. Add to that the recession, which is forcing more veterans to turn to the VA for help. Paul Sullivan was an Army scout during the Gulf War in 1991 and later spent 6 years working at the VA analyzing trends in disability claims.
All of those things have resulted in the Veterans Benefits Administration facing a backlog of 1 million claims.
The system, as you see it, is overwhelmed now.
Absolutely overwhelmed.
Sullivan is now Executive Director of Veterans for Common Sense, a group that champions veterans issues.
Veterans wait, on average, about 6 months to receive an initial answer on a disability claim. If a veteran disagrees with VA's decision, the veteran waits another 4 years. That is a crisis.
And that's how Army veteran Joe Devin sees it. In late 2003, he was on patrol in Baghdad when he says an IED exploded near his truck.
Scare you? Stun you?
It was. I mean, I'd say for the first few seconds afterwards, I wasn't really sure if I was dead or alive.
Devins left the Army in 2004 and now receives $704 a month for a back injury and for migraine headaches that he says were caused by the IED. Devins also claims to suffer from sleeplessness, anxiety, and anger.
I haven't had a single night's sleep without either over-the-counter or prescription medication since probably December of '03.
Yet it wasn't until 2 years after his discharge that a VA counselor told Devins he had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and should apply for benefits. So he did. Then 10 months later, the VA rejected his claim.
They denied the PTSD.
Because?
Because they said I had to show them proof that the incident with the IED actually happened.
But they were already giving you compensation for the head injury.
Correct.
Well, doesn't that prove that you were there?
I would think so, but apparently that wasn't enough proof for them.
What do you think they were saying about you, though?
That I was making stuff up, that, I was just out to get money.
The VA doesn't say that Devins is making up his claim, only that he can't prove it. He gets benefits for migraines simply because they started while he was in the Army. But there is no mention of an IED explosion in his military records. Devin's situation is not uncommon. It can be difficult to pin down a particular cause of PTSD. So the VA says it is changing the rules for these claims, and veterans will no longer have to prove a connection between specific incidents and their post-traumatic stress disorder. That will take some of the workload off of people like Ron Robinson,
a VA employee for 13 years, and a veteran who spent 20 years in the Army.
You're proud to serve.
Yes,
Are you proud to work for the VA?
of course.
Are you proud of the work the VA is doing?
No. We can do better.
Problems in the VA's benefits branch have been the subject of GAO reports and congressional hearings for years. Starting in 2007, the VA received sizable increases in its budget and began hiring thousands of new employees. Yet the backlog of claims keeps growing.
We keep trying to fix it, but it keeps getting out of hand. We throw more money at the problem, more people, we still have the problem.
So what is it then? If more people can't fix the problem, more money can't fix the problem, how do you fix it?
It's a culture. It's a leadership problem.
Robinson points to the VA's requirement that employees meet production quotas. It's a convoluted system of earning points for processing the paperwork in a claims file. The idea is to bring down the backlog, but Robinson says it also leads employees to make mistakes.
Because they're focused on, as opposed to dealing with his veteran's case properly, they're focused on getting their points for that case.
Of course. Anyone will tell you that.
And if you don't get your points?
Well, people get their points.
But if you
Most
don't get
people.
your points?
Well, if you don't get your points, you don't get bonuses, promotions, you don't get the bennies.
I don't believe that they're being pressured to produce claims at the expense of quality. We stress over and over again to our employees that quality is our number one indicator, that's absolutely a requirement for successful performance.
But last March, the VA's Inspector General discovered that the VA was making more mistakes than it reported. The internal investigation found that nearly 1 out of 4 files had errors. That's 200,000 claims that may be incorrect. Attorney Douglas Rosinski has been handling veterans' cases for 10 years.
How would you characterize the VA disability benefit system?
Broken. It's broken.
This is one vet's file.
I've seen claims files that were 2 or 3 of these boxes.
Claims are being denied unfairly, Rosinski says, because VA employees don't have the time to read the files thoroughly.
When you get a denial and it says, we didn't see, that's right. I mean, they're not lying, but if you don't look, you don't see, and even if you're looking, it's hard to find out what's in there.
There is no incentive to deny claims, and there's no pressure from anybody to deny a claim. I can't say it any simpler than that.
David Pitts is an Air Force veteran and one of Rosinski's clients.
You served your country for 18 years.
Yes.
Is your country serving you now?
It's not my country that's doing this, it's the VA. There is no prouder American than I am.
In 1968, Pitts was on temporary duty in Korea when the Tet Offensive in Vietnam caught American forces off guard. Pitts says he was quickly dispatched to deliver communication codes across Vietnam when his helicopter made a hard landing.
When we hit hard. I got out of that, and I didn't have any problem for that for about a year. But this was when I started receiving a VA disability for it.
Pitts receives $644 a month for back and leg injuries that he says are related to the crash. He also believes he's eligible for additional benefits because Vietnam War vets with illnesses that could have been caused by exposure to Agent Orange are given automatic compensation. The problem for David Pitts is he can't prove he was even in Vietnam. He says his 2 brief assignments were under verbal orders, and he was told there are no records of his having been in the country.
You had people and equipment just flooding into Korea, and suddenly Tet happens. And it was a period of mass confusion.
Record keeping wasn't a priority at the time.
No, record keeping was not any type of priority at the time.
In recent years, Pitts says he tried to find his former commanding officer from Korea, plus a hometown friend he says he ran into while in Vietnam, but both had died. Without corroboration or records, Pitts never applied for the benefit. Then in November 2008, out of the blue, the VA sent him this letter.
It says, according to records of the Department of Veterans Affairs, you were stationed in the Republic of Vietnam during your military service.
Right.
And you got this letter, you thought what?
well, somebody has found something.
Based on the letter, Pitts filed a claim. It took the VA 10 months to review it before denying it. It's an example of the complexity that both the VA and veterans face in establishing what happened years, sometimes decades, after events have taken place. The VA says it needs evidence to grant a claim. It could not find any records putting David Pitts in Vietnam. The VA told 60 Minutes that the letter was sent by mistake, something it has not explained to David Pitts. The Obama administration and the VA say they've given top priority to ending confusion over military records, and new computer technology will someday track veterans from their first day in uniform through the rest of their lives.
Why should veterans believe what you say? That, aha, now we're going to get it right.
That's a tough question because certainly some of the problems that we see in VBA have existed for quite a while. There have been efforts, believe me, to try to improve the system. The one difference that I think really is in place right now is that I believe that we're seeing the advent of technology that is going to allow us to really change the basic way that we process benefits.
Why should the average American care about the fact that veterans, their benefits are delayed, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years?
Put on a uniform. We served our country honorably and faithfully, and we deserve. We deposited it into America's bank account, and when we come home, it's time for us to make a withdrawal. That's why we should care.